One of my personal areas of interest in astrology is this area of ancestral karma. I've been feeling a desire to connect, the astrology conversations to spirituality a lot more. I am very fascinated with the spiritual aspect of astrology because I have seen that play out in my own personal life, in terms of my bloodline and my relationship with my parents and my parents' relationship with their parent. I have seen that play out in other people's lives, that I've done readings for. In other words, somebody could be like a Scorpio sun, and then they end up having a child who is also a Scorpio sun, or they end up having a child who's a Scorpio moon, and then that child will go on to have another child who's a Scorpio moon, and then it just keeps going on like that. I firmly believe that we are spirit beings having a human experience. I firmly believe that we are souls who are borrowing a body for this ride, on earth that we call life, and it's a very short ride. I know sometimes we feel like it's long, but it's really not. Even if you live to be 80 years, you're never gonna feel like it was enough. Like, even I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I wake up and I'm like, wow, how did I get here to this age? Like, how did it happen so fast? It's like you look up and there it is. It's like all of a sudden you're like halfway through your life and it's almost over, even if everything goes well. So it's quite a short ride, and we're here to learn things. We're here to discover things about ourselves. We're here to heal things, to grow and to stretch, and that is our calling. There are no saints here on earth. As much as some of us are obsessed with this idea that we're perfect and everybody else is flawed and wounded, the truth is all of us are sinners. And I say sinners in the sense that all of us are in need of healing. All of us are wounded. All of us have things about our lives, our background, our history that have hurt us or traumatized us that we're still carrying around. Some of us have trauma from past lives that we brought to this life. In the case of Scorpio and Capricorn and Aquarius, we're hurting. All of us are hurting. All of us are in pain about one thing or another. And we are here to heal that pain. We're here to make peace with that pain and to allow it to transform us into better versions of ourselves, into deeper, more conscious versions, into more compassionate, kinder versions of ourselves, because we know what that hurt feels like. But unfortunately, for many of us, when we are wounded and when we are hurting, we don't think about the spiritual lessons of that hurt. And when we go on to reproduce, oftentimes the things that we do not heal about ourselves, we pass on to our children. And this is how you end up with somebody who's a Scorpio sun having a child who's also a Scorpio sun. That's how you end up with someone who's a Scorpio sun having a child who's a Scorpio moon. It's because the lessons of that Scorpio energy have not been learned by the master. So now they must be passed on to the student. In this case, it's the child. And it's been my experience that bloodlines tend to follow each other that way. Those that are in religious communities talk about ancestral curses, generational curses. That's the term that they use in spiritual communities. They talk about generational curses. I call it, ancestral karmic lessons, but it's all the same. It's basically, there's some things, traumatic things, that your parents have gone through that they have avoided, or they have not wanted to talk about, they have not wanted to deal with. And they brought you in this environment with this pain that they pass on to you subconsciously. And you now carry their pain with you. And if you don't heal that, you're going to pass it on to your children. If they don't heal that, they're going to pass it on to their children. And that's kind of how it works. It's always fascinating to me when people brag about being abused as children. They're like, I got beat, I turned out okay. It's like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? Like, how, first of all, how is that something to brag about? The fact that you were abused as a child. Why, what is it about you that makes you think that you being abused as a child is actually a badge of honor? What's that about? Why is that something to be proud of? The fact that you were physically and violently hit as a child. And why is it something to be proud of that in spite of that you turned out okay? Usually these people are the ones that need therapy the most. Because we can all see that you're not okay, but you're the only one who thinks you're okay. And just because you're breathing and you're walking and you're going to work and you're eating your sandwiches does not mean that you're okay. And we can tell you're not okay by the emotional reactions you have to the things that happen to you. We can tell you're not okay by your inability to have healthy relationships. We can tell you're not okay by the way that you spend your spare time. We can tell you're not okay by the thoughts that you have in your head when you're quiet by yourself. You don't feel good in your skin. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel worthy of good things. You go out of your way to attract drama in your life because you feel miserable. And the frequency of drama is the only one you connect to. It's the only one you respond to. You're not okay. If you feel the need to beat your child because you were beat, you're not okay. And speaking of beating children, what would be the reason for beating that child? If the reason you're beating them is because they don't understand what you're saying, then how is beating them going to make them understand? And if they don't understand because they're little, how is you beating them going to make them understand? So you're beating them because they're little and they don't understand. Make it make sense. I'm not getting it. I don't understand how you beating them is actually helping them. You're just enacting violence upon them. That's what you're doing. And you're enacting violence upon them because somebody enacted violence upon you. And you didn't like it. But somehow you think it's the right thing to do because that's how you were conditioned. Because you were beat, then they have to be beat. How does that make any sense? To physically abuse a child because they don't understand. They don't understand because they are a child. So it's your job as a parent to help them understand. Not to punish them because they don't understand. That is only a reflection of your own pain. You're just passing that violence that is in your DNA now because you've been abused onto them. You're abusing them because you were abused. And you think it's okay because it happened to you. Because it happened to you, you think it's okay. But it's not okay. It wasn't okay when it happened to you. Your parents just didn't know any better. But now you know better. So you should do better. There's been lots of studies that have been done about children being beat and corporal punishment in children. What we now know, because our goal is always to evolve, right? We're trying to move the human race to a higher vibration. We're trying to raise our consciousness. We want the humans of tomorrow to be smarter than us, to be better than us, to be more accomplished than us, to actually help humanity much more than we ever did. That is the goal. That's why we're here. We're all here to cleanse ourselves of our own pain and join with one another in love. That's why we're here. That is the purpose of life. We're here to raise the vibration, to get it closer to divine vibration, which is a vibration of love. We're not here to live in fear. We're here to live in love. And I know it's hard. I know it's hard. Because you can look around you and you can tell you're in hell. COVID certainly highlighted a lot of things about the human condition that we didn't know. I don't know about you, but I learned a lot about humans since COVID started. Things that I didn't even know we were capable of. People were asked to wear a mask to protect other people from being ill. And they were violently offended that they were being asked to do something that might protect other people from being sick. Let's think about that for a minute. You're upset that we're asking you to do something to keep people like me alive. Wow, that is insane. That's the world we live in. You know, the CDC really should have known that about the human condition, and they should have presented that whole masking thing from the point of view of who we are at our core, which is inherently selfish. They should have said, if you wear the mask, it's going to keep you from getting sick. then maybe people would have been more compliant. But the minute we introduced this idea that the mask wasn't really about our own protection, and that it was actually for the protection of our brothers and sisters, then suddenly, I don't know. I don't know if it's something I want to do. I don't know. Do they deserve to live? I don't know. Like, I'm being asked to inconvenience myself so that they can live. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But that is at the heart of the human condition. See, when we're living in a low vibrational state, when we're living in fear, because there's only two frequencies, there's love, which is God's frequency, and then there's fear. When we're living in fear, we live in this lack mentality. Everything is very fear-based. It's about not having enough of everything. So everything is, what about me? But what about me? Where does that leave me? What about me? So when my child is talking back to me, and I find it offensive, my ego is hurt. What about me? I don't like how they make me feel. Instead of trying to take a minute to take a deep breath and to reflect on, well, why do I feel this way about what they said or what they did? What is it about their behavior that's triggering me? What's upsetting me about what they're doing? You know what I'm going to do instead when I'm in a fear state? I'm going to punish them for making me feel that way. And I'm going to physically abuse them for making me feel that way, because now I feel pain. Because they've triggered something inside of me that makes me feel bad. So I want them to feel bad. Because what about me? Because what about me? Some people generally think that they came to Earth to only think about themselves. And I feel kind of sad for them, because when they die, they're going to realize that's not why they were here. And they're going to have to turn around and come back and do that whole thing all over again. Because when we don't learn lessons, we get to repeat them. That's how it goes. Same thing in school. When you fail a grade, you get to do it again. It's the same thing with life. When you die, you come back. You get to come back on a higher vibration if you had good karma. And if your karma wasn't so good, you get to come back on a lower vibration. So you get to do it again. So why not utilize this time that we have here to become the best version of ourselves that we can be? Instead of what about me, it's how do I become a more loving person? How do I become a more compassionate person? How do I become a kinder person? How do I become the kind of person that actually is generally trying to do good? And that gives what is good to other people. And at the very least, that gives back the goodness that is given to us. Like, that's bare minimum. Bare minimum. Our refusal to deal with our trauma, to deal with our pain, to deal with our hurt, doesn't just affect us. It affects the human race as a whole. Because we're going to keep passing it to our children. We're going to keep passing it to their children. And it's just a never-ending cycle of suffering. Suffering that can be avoided if we're willing to learn, grow, and heal. And healing is painful. Yes, it hurts to heal. Because when you start looking at the horrible things that have happened to you, especially in childhood, when you start looking at them through the lens of an adult, you see them for the first time in a different way. And that hurts even more, because now you understand. Like that time when your parent decided to like beat you with a switch cord for 30 minutes because you didn't want to drink your milk, you realize now how traumatizing that was, because now you're an adult and you go, whoa, was that really warranted? Like, a switch cord? 30 minutes because I didn't want to drink my milk? Like, how psychotic were they, is what you're thinking. But there's nothing you can do about it. It's already happened. But that's a reflection of their own pain and their own trauma that they passed on to you. So yes, it hurts to go back and look at that and fully unpack the ways that you have been traumatized by certain life circumstances. But the beauty of being willing to do that emotional labor is that it makes you stronger. And it also raises your compassion. So it really is about us, this journey. It's about each and every one of us. And that's why I do what I do. And yes, I use humorous means to communicate. And sometimes it's silly and sometimes it's off-colored. I don't really care the means. What I'm trying to do here in this space is encourage as many of you as possible to heal. I'm trying to encourage as many of you as possible to look at yourselves in the mirror and to own yourself, your full selves. The parts of yourselves that you love and the parts of yourselves that you don't really care for very much, that you're still working on. Because here's the thing, we're going to be working on this until we die. It doesn't end. Like, healing doesn't have like a deadline. It's not like you do it and then it's done, you know. You can heal from something and still be triggered at times and have to like go through all the emotions again. And all that is normal. But people who are not healed cannot offer anything healthy to anybody. They cannot. Because they need all of their healing energy. If all I know in my life is pain and suffering, why do you think that I have anything nice to give to you? Why are you looking for love from me? I don't have any love to give. All I have to give you is pain. That's all that was given to me. I can only give you what I have. So do not ask me for more than what I have. You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo.